Hi guys, this is Miss Richardson again, and I am back with another video on loop and a half. So this is a little bit extra on while loops, so we're still using while loops, but now we're going to create a special variable called a sentinel. Now what this variable does is it gives us a way to close out of a while loop before the end of the program. So we're going to create a couple of different statements with this, and I'm going to reuse this program that I made in my while loops. So this is just the exact same program that I did in our example for while loops. So if you need to pause to get caught up with this program, I'm going to go ahead and let you do that. All right, so we're back for those of you that needed to take a break. Now, in this program, what's happening is I randomly select a number, they guess it, and it keeps going until that number actually is correct. Now, what if they wanted to quit out of the program? They can't do that with the way that the program is written right now. So I'm going to alter a couple of things in my program. I'm still going to randomly generate, so that's going to stay the same. But now I'm going to set up my while loop to keep going. So I'm actually just going to establish the while loop to true, because inside my while loop, I'm going to have two possible ways to exit the program. Okay. So I'm going to have a special variable called a sentinel variable. Basically, as long as they type this in, it's going to quit the program. So typically I set my sentinels to the value -1 because that's not something that they would normally type in, and it's not a value that we would use. So I'm going to set up an if statement that if they use the sentinel, then it will quit the program. And the way that you do that is you have a special kind of command called break. So you actually spell out the word break and use a semicolon. This will end the program right there. So if they type in the sentinel, they're done. Now, once I have my sentinel, I'm also going to set up another if statement where in my old program, if they guessed the number right, it would never even enter into the while loop. It would just immediately go on to the next one. I'm going to change that on my program a little bit where if they guess it right, it'll exit the loop, but if they guess it wrong, it'll keep going. So I'm going to use an if else statement here. So if they are right, it'll print a message. So it'll say, yes, that was my number. So it'll print something. And then it will also use the break statement. So this is going to allow us to escape that. And then we'll do an else for if they are wrong. Now, because I have these two things, I'm not going to need that closing message that I had in my original program, because the reveal can actually happen up here within the while loop itself. So let's start off with the changes. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my sentinel variable. So I'm going to come up here, and I actually typically do these above my start function. You don't have to, but it's where I'm going to do it. So I'm going to do variable, and in all capitals, because this is going to be seen as a constant, I'm going to type out sentinel equals -1. So I'm going to establish that as my sentinel. This variable, guess my number, I'm going to make a couple of changes on. The first thing I'm going to do is this entire first section where it's read int, guess my number, I'm going to be moving that later. Okay, so I'm actually going to cut that out, and I'll just save it down here for a minute because I don't want to use it right away, but I'm going to save it. And I'm just going to do guess semicolon. What this does is it creates my guess variable, but it doesn't initialize it to anything. Okay. The reason that I do this outside of the loop is if I do variable guess down in here, it's going to create a new variable every single time, which is not good for your memory usage. So we're just going to do variable guess up here, and then we'll save this command for a little bit later. All right, where it says while guess does not equal random number, I'm going to be changing my while statement, and I'm just going to type in the Boolean expression true. So this while loop will just go. It will keep going and going and going and going until my if statements run. So you can just set a while loop to true. Now, in here, I'm going to set up my sentinel. So I'll give myself a little bit of space. So I'm going to go if, oh, wait, can't do an if statement yet. I need to get my user to do something. So now I'm going to do guess. And then this is where I'm going to pull in, that's my number. So I'm going to move that up. And now I'm just reusing that code. I like to do that so that I'm not deleting and retyping. So I'll pause and let you guys get caught up with that. Okay. So what's going to happen is now it'll have them guess the number. Now that I have input, this is where my if statements are going to run. If guess equals sentinel. So if my guess, whatever they type in, equals the sentinel value, then it's going to quit out. Now, right now, they don't know about the sentinel value, so I might need to add that in my directions. Guess my number or type -1 to quit. That will tell them you don't have to do this program. You can hit -1 and it'll just quit out. You don't have to do the game. So that will give them a little bit more. And then if guess is sentinel, I'm going to print goodbye because they're leaving the program. So I'm going to say goodbye. And then I will type my break statement. So it'll randomly generate a number. They're going to guess the number or type -1. If they type -1, it'll say goodbye and the program will quit. Now, I like to keep sentinels in their own if statements. I do not usually stack these within if else if statements unless I absolutely have to. So typically, I just leave that as its own if statement. So now we're going to create the if else statement for if they win or lose. So I'm just going to set up my kind of frame here. If they guessed right, I want it to print, yes, that was my number. If they guess wrong, then I'm going to go ahead and go back down into here with the else. So if guess equaled my random number. So you should recognize this from our earlier program. So now we're going to do if guess is the random number, then we'll print that print line. So I'm going to move it from my reveal in my earlier program and just move it up. And then since they guessed the number, we're going to use the break statement to end the program. Now we have two program exits. We have if they use the sentinel, it'll break out of the program. If they guess it right, it'll break out of the program. So now we have two possible ways to get out of this program. Now, if they guess it wrong, this is where we need our else statement. That's where we're going to do, no, that is not my number. Now, this one right here, this statement in our earlier program, because we only wanted to repeat, we needed guess and try another number inside. But right up here, I have my user input. Read int, guess my number. I don't need it again. It's going to get repetitive. And if I run it as is, it's going to see it tried another number, but then it guesses it again. So we're going to actually get rid of this line. We no longer need it as part of our program because now else will print, no, that's not my number, and then cycle right back up to line 8 where it guesses it. So let's do some test runs on this program. First thing it's going to do is guess my number or type -1. I'm going to check that my sentinel's working, so I'm going to do -1, and it says goodbye and ends the program. Okay, so far so good. I'm going to run it again. This time I'm just going to guess my numbers, not worry about the sentinel. I have numbers 1 through 10, so I'm going to guess 1. Nope, that is not my number. And here you can see guess my number or type -1 to quit. Here's where it cycled back up to the top of my while loop. I'm going to guess 2. Nope, not my number. 3. Nope, not my number. 4. Nope, not my number. So I know my else statement is working. 5. No. 6. Yes. And right here, 6 was my number. So there's my reveal statement. Yes, my number was random num. So this is just kind of an update on that other program so that you have a way to exit your program. It also lets your if statement run your while loop rather than your while loop running something. So you can actually use if else if statements to control whether or not your while loop is going to continue. So that is how you use sentinels and how you use break statements in a program.